Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I have to warn you, this is a long video and I hope you're still with me at the end. This is part 2 of the series about my caregiving journey. I will pin a comment with a link to part 1 if you have not seen it yet. Part 1 is about caregiving for my wife before diagnosis, and this video will be about caregiving post-diagnosis. I'll start off by talking about the adversities and challenges we faced from the time of diagnosis back in 2018, and I'll walk you through the last 5 years leading up until today. At the end of the video, about the last 5 minutes or so, I'll talk about the blessings and what I've learned about myself. Okay, so to stay on topic of caregiving and not drag this video out longer than it already is, I'm not really gonna deep dive into the diagnosis. I do have several videos on that, and I've created a playlist for it that you can find on the main channel page. To briefly touch on it, I took Theresa to her primary care doctor back in 2018. During this appointment, she was screened for dementia. She was given the clock test, and it was discovered that she could not tell time. We were referred to a neurologist where she underwent a PET scan, MRI, spinal tap, neuropsychological exam, and was ultimately diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease at the age of 49. After diagnosis, we started to digest the magnitude of the journey ahead for both of us. The first year was very emotional, as you can imagine. Theresa's doctor gave me the diagnosis over the phone, and then I had to tell her myself. I delivered it in the most gentle and loving way I could muster, right here at the kitchen counter behind me. Theresa had told me early on in our relationship that she wanted to be cremated when she died, and for her ashes to be spread under the center span of the Verrazano Bridge in New York. She loved that bridge and she loved New York. However, on this day, she said to me, "When I die, spread my ashes here in Florida at the beach so you can come visit me." Hearing that broke my heart. It struck me like nothing ever had. I cried my eyes out. I was wailing. I hadn't cried like that since I was a child. Theresa actually comforted me in that moment, and she was the strong one. I promised her that I'd always care for her and never leave her side. In 2019, the Division of Motor Vehicles got word of her diagnosis. I assumed from one of her doctors, and we had to surrender her driver's license. Now, she wasn't driving at this point, but losing her independence was incredibly hard for her and incredibly hard for me to watch. I had to make the appointment and bring her to the DMV. Theresa broke down and became hysterical. Everyone in that entire place was watching us. Later that year, when I applied for Social Security disability, Theresa had to have an interview with a psychologist to determine her eligibility. Again, I made this appointment and brought Theresa. The psychologist asked me to leave the room so she could give Theresa a cognitive test. 5 minutes later, I was called back in. Theresa was on the floor in a hysterical crying fit. She was unable to complete that test, and she was aware and reminded of her lost capacity. When I got her back into the car, she began to bang her head against the window, kicked the dash, and was pulling her hair out. She even tried to jump out of the car a few times. I was just hoping I could get her back home without any incident or getting pulled over by the police. Caregiving for Theresa between 2018 and 2019 consisted of providing her a lot of emotional support, preventing her from harming herself. Theresa was aware of her lost capacity and desperately wanted to be her old self. She had trouble expressing her thoughts and articulating her needs. She couldn't find the words that she was looking for. I facilitated all of her doctor's appointments. Not just appointment for Alzheimer's disease, but everything. Dentist, breast health, neurology, dermatology, primary care, and OBGYN. I sat in the exam rooms with her and spoke with all of her doctors. Theresa experienced severe night sweats back in 2019. I spoke with a neurologist, primary care doc, and her OBGYN to try and figure out what was going on. Theresa was 50 years old at the time, and perhaps she was in menopause, perimenopause. Her OBGYN prescribed her drug estradiol, which seemed to help for a short while, but the sweats came back, and we were instructed to stop taking that medicine due to the strong history of cancer in her family. She would literally drench the bed, and I had to change the sheets every night or lay down towels She never had hot flashes, just severe sweating. I had to help her change her clothes in the middle of the night, and this impacted our sleep, and we were both miserable. None of our doctors could figure it out, and we endured the sweating for at least a year or more. Also, during this time, I had to make financial and legal preparations for our future. I already made a video about the financial preparation, so I'll just brief you on the legal ones here. My father was an estate planning attorney. His specialty was wills, trust, guardianship, avoiding probate, power of attorney, and healthcare surrogate. Now, my dad drew up all of Theresa's legal documents immediately after her diagnosis. I recommend getting this legal work done while your loved one still has the capacity to be involved in making decisions and those last wishes known. Fortunately, my dad passed 2 years ago, but my mom has been a great support to me over the years while caring for my wife. She's been a tremendous blessing to me and a sounding board. I speak with her every day. Not only has she helped me emotionally, but also has a wealth of legal knowledge, as she worked as a legal secretary before my father became an attorney, and she also worked alongside my dad at his law firm. All right, so back to caregiving. Between 2019 and early 2020, Theresa was mostly able to dress by herself and perform some light housework. She was able to tend to the garden and help doing dishes. However, her abilities were noticeably degrading, and I needed to keep an eye on her and often go back and re-clean things. I would try to do things for her that I knew that she would have trouble with, so she could avoid feeling bad about herself for not being able to complete the task on her own. I had to learn how to help her without her feeling like I was helping her. I just told her that, I loved her and wanted to dote on her. Theresa was also misplacing items such as her eyeglasses, water bottle, and her purse. This was an all-day, everyday task. I was always looking for lost items. Theresa also began to have delusions that people were stealing plants from her backyard. She began collecting rocks from outside and bringing them inside the house. And I'd find rocks and crushed shells all over the place. Now, I've been working for the same company for the last 22 years, and I was afforded the opportunity to work from home. So I was with Theresa 24/7 after her diagnosis. I was very grateful to be able to do that. I was 44 years old when Theresa was diagnosed. Early onset posed a unique challenge of caregiving because I was not retired yet. I was working as a network engineer for a healthcare company. I supported 80 different doctor offices in Florida, as well as a data center in Tampa. When the phones or internet went down at one of these locations, I often had to go on site to physically fix the problem. These were network and communication related emergencies, and patient care was at stake. These instances would pop up unexpectedly, and I had to take Theresa with me to these clinics because I could not leave her here at home by herself. Under the time constraints of resolving these work emergencies, I had no other option. I was now taking her to work with me when I had to leave home. I began to experience tremendous stress from being on call, responding to these types of emergencies, and trying to care for Theresa all at the same time. I reached out to my doctor and was prescribed medication for anxiety, which I'm still taking today. I did try to wean myself off recently, and that was a big fail. I definitely need to stay on the meds for now. Many of you have mentioned I look tired. You see the stress in my face. I recently received a comment from a subscriber saying that I look like a deep sea fisherman. And that one really made me laugh, guys. I wasn't offended at all. At the encouragement of Theresa, I actually got my U.S. Coast Guard captain's license back in 2009 just because I love deep sea fishing and boating so much. I thought maybe I'd do fishing charters at some point after I retired. So I do realize that I need some self-care, and maybe I just need to take a break and go fishing. All right, so back on track here. In 2020, Theresa started putting her clothes on backwards and needed help picking out outfits to wear. She was not really picking appropriate clothes for the weather. She also started gaining weight due to the medication she was on and lack of physical activity. We used to do we used to get a lot of exercise by walking. We did about 4 miles a day, but she was getting very agitated with people that we'd come across at the park or the beach while out walking. Clothes shopping was very difficult. I had to learn about women's clothing and take her to stores and to try outfits on. I would go into the changing room with her to help her try stuff on. I had to pick her clothes out because she could not decide what she liked and no longer had the capacity to tell, what matched. She could not make decisions for herself. In late 2020, we started traveling the US, inspired by a bumper sticker that read, "Adventure Before Dementia." I took Theresa on 3 different road trips between 2020 and 2021, and we visited 44 states. There's a news media interview that I did with a local TV station here in Florida. That video is posted on our channel as well if you're interested. It is entitled "Adventure Before Dementia." Lots of photos from our journeys were showcased in that news interview, but traveling that many states was very challenging. Theresa was not able to help me navigate, pick out places to stay or attractions to visit. I had to take her into family restrooms because she could not figure out how to use the sink or the toilet in the women's room. I had to pack her clothes and help her get dressed every day. Our last trip was back in late 2021. We were in Colorado when Theresa started to experience delusions of people following us and trying to harm her. She was also experiencing myoclonic jerks, which are involuntary leg and arm movements. These can occur in later stages of dementia, but also related to certain medication. I had to cut that trip short and head home. The entire ride home, Theresa was nervous about people hurting her and following us. People on TV, at the restaurants we went to, the drive-through, hotel clerks, just everybody. I called her doctor and they prescribed her Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic. This medication did not prevent her delusions, but dulled her reaction to them. In 2022, Theresa needed complete help with dressing, bathing, grooming. She could not operate the shower fixture to determine hot and cold. She couldn't follow simple instructions, such like putting ice in a glass or pouring her own drink or even putting her shoes on. Between 2022 and April of 2023, when I placed Theresa into memory care, her delusions had increased and she began to hallucinate. She tried leaving the house, and I was worried about her wandering off. She would also knock furniture around and think that I was having an affair when I went to the grocery store. Now, I don't want to repeat myself a whole lot here. I did go into detail about all the factors involved in my decision to place her into memory care. There's a video entitled "Memory Care at 54" if you have not seen that yet. So my caring for her here at home ended in April of 2023, but I visit her every day now. As you guys are aware, I'm a constant present in her life, supporting her emotionally and still caring for her physical needs, but bathing her, grooming, and doing her laundry. All right, so this video is getting kind of long, guys. I could talk for days about this journey, but we're going to wrap up by talking about what I've learned about myself after all these years. What blessings could I have possibly received facing these circumstances? The first blessing I'll discuss is bittersweet. Over the years, I've discovered who my true friends are and which family members would help support us and stay involved in Theresa's life. The ugly truth, guys, is that Theresa did not have much family support, very little visitation from them, or even phone calls to check in. It hurt us deeply, and I was often caught in the middle of trying to make excuses for their lack of visitation without expressing my true feelings of disappointment about them. This made my job of caring for Theresa so much more difficult. I'm still bitter about it today, but I have a deeper love and appreciation for the family and friends that did stay involved. This disease can really mess families up, and many of you had shared some of that with me in the comments. The next blessing I'll talk about is an unexpected one. I've always had tremendous fear of public speaking, but this disease and the struggles we've endured has given me the courage to speak out. I've shared her story with local news media here in Florida on 3 different occasions. Teresa and I were also featured on a TV show together. Additionally, we traveled with the Alzheimer's organization to the Florida Capitol, where I spoke with state legislators about Theresa's story of early onset. I've lost my fear of public speaking because the topic at hand is so close to me and I've endured it for so long. Now, what have I learned about myself? When I took my marital vows, I meant them, but I never knew that they would be tested like this. I've learned that I am indeed a man of my word. I honored my vows in sickness and health. I've learned that I'm a strong person, beaten up terribly by this disease, but still standing and undefeated. I've learned that I wish for no other kind of life. I'm exactly where I want to be, right by my wife's side. I don't think about future plans. I'm here in the moment with her. I'm blessed that I've had this opportunity to care for my wife and be the husband that she could depend on. It is the greatest honor to care for her. I've learned my calling in life was to be by her side and serve as an advocate for dementia-related diseases. I imagine that many of you watching this video can relate to me. We're on the same journey. Maybe you have a spouse afflicted with dementia. Maybe you have a parent or both parents, a grandparent. Maybe you have a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, or best friend. You know how hard this disease is. You can relate to what I'm saying. You have to be tough, very tough, the strongest type of person to endure this journey, the long goodbye. May this video help you not feel so alone, and please know that your support is helping me. Many of you watching have experienced the death of a loved one at the hands of this disease, but your journey has not ended. You are still here providing support to others who are facing the same path. The journey will never be over for me either. My life has been forever impacted. I'm a fighter, fiercely loyal protector of my wife, and I'll face the journey head on, becoming wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and continue to hold great empathy for others facing this disease. I am with all of you caregivers out there, and I will continue advocating for those impacted by this disease for the rest of my life. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate all of you so much, and I will see you in the next video, and I'll talk with you in the comments. Take care.